certain affordable housing in the South End section of the City of Boston. It is Tuesday, February 26th, and this matter was sponsored by Mayor Martin J. Walsh, referred to the committee back on January the 30th of 2019, and it's a home rule petition which seeks to allow the BHA to participate in a redevelopment using federal funds to revive the Ava White public housing development. The transmittal letter also indicates that the redevelopment requires certain exemptions from the state's contract and procurement award laws. For background reference, the City Council has approved similar home rule petitions for other BHA developments over the past several years across the city, including East Boston, Jamaica Plain, and Roxbury. I'd like to note at this time that this hearing is being recorded and broadcast from Comcast Channel 8, RCN 82, and Verizon 1964, and will also be streamlined on Boston City Council TV online. Joining us today is Kate Bennett, the Deputy Administrator from the BHA, and also Lydia Agro, Chief of Staff of the BHA, and Dean Papadimitriou, Legal Counsel for the BHA. So welcome to everybody, and also want to extend regrets from my colleague, the District City Council from District 2, Ed Flynn. He is actually at a conference in D.C. for disabled veterans. We all know Ed has served in the Navy and is a big supporter of our veterans, so he was called down to Washington, D.C. For a conference. So he regrets his not being able to be here, but sends his regards, and will be reviewing the material and the tape when he gets back tomorrow morning. So with that, I'll open it up. You guys have the floor. Just introduce yourself, state your name and affiliation for the record, and tell us a little bit about the petition, and we'll go from there.
Much, Chairman. My name is Kate Bennett, Senior Deputy Administrator at the Boston Housing Authority. Very much appreciate the opportunity to come here today and testify regarding the critical importance of this legislation to the Boston Housing Authority, and more importantly to the residents of the Eva White Apartments, a 101-unit elderly disabled public housing development in the South End. The BHA has designated Wind Development to fully renovate this property to become part of its larger Castle Square complex. This petition is identical to others that you have heard and passed to help revitalize public housing throughout the city. Without this legislation, the BHA will not be able to redevelop or provide substantial capital upgrades to the Eva White property. As with other projects such as Mission Main, Maverick, and Old Colony, to name just a few, approval of this home rule petition is project-specific, solely and specifically for the redevelopment of Eva White. Although there have been reforms to the state statutes regarding the filed subbids under Chapter 149, the changes are insufficient to allow the BHA to move forward in redevelopment efforts of this kind. Without passage, the project must adhere to an extremely structured filed subbid process with separate general contractors and subcontractor selection. The BHA and its developers would have no ability to value engineer or redesign the project should costs increase beyond the funding available for the redevelopment efforts. The value engineering is where significant savings can be made by allowing the developers to negotiate pricing with various subcontractors. Under existing statutes, changes in design made to reduce costs may require that the bid process begin all over again, putting the entire project at risk. The Eva White property is severely distressed in terms of systems, envelope, elevators, common area, and unit kitchen and bath issues. The residents actually approached the BHA 2 years ago to request that we move forward with a request for proposals for the site in hopes that renovations could be completed and that the property would become part of the largest Castle Square community. The property will now be fully renovated, and a full slate of resident services not currently available to residents will be brought on site. There will be no change to the number of units or the level of deep affordability at the site. In addition, BHA will continue to own the land on which the building will be rebuilt and lease it to Wynn. The project will preserve 101 units of deeply affordable elderly disabled housing for generations to come. Our residents deserve to live in suitable and decent housing and to officially realize their wish to become part of the Castle Square community. We ask for your support of this legislation so that we are able to make this vision a reality for them. Thanks so much for the chance to come today.
And thank you very much, Kate. And your presentation answered some of my questions in terms of the number of units. I know we're at 101. We're going to stay at 101,
yes,
of course. We had a hearing here in this very chamber last night talking about the schools and the capital effort under Build BPS. And one of the things that struck me is for significant period of time, we as a city, we never really had a plan as to how we were going to make the necessary upgrades for aging fleet of schools. Well, we
Yep.
also, as you know, in the portfolio of BHA housing, we have a lot of aging developments, and so those critical partnerships, whether it's with Wynn, they do a phenomenal job, they get a great track record, or even what you're asking for today is paramount in terms of putting a plan together, getting a degree of predictability, and predictability in real estate and in construction and renovation and rehab is huge, and then just working smarter, and you guys have been doing that, so I just credit to you and to Lydia and to your team, Dean, and also Bill McGonigal for efforts, because, you know, as times we've been watching sort of the federal government kind of turning their back on public housing, but at the same time, you guys have been able to sort of scratch and claw and squeak every cent out of every dollar that, and that's huge for folks that are living in public housing, and speaking from someone that was born
Thank you.
in public housing, so I appreciate those efforts. Can you maybe just give us a snapshot of the timeline, if all goes well, if we can get a positive committee report and get this before the council for a vote? Are we going to be in the ground fairly soon? And then from a displacement standpoint, the residents will have to be relocated, I would assume, for a
Well,
period
we're
of time?
hoping to do occupied unit
That's awesome.
rehab or accumulate some vacancies within the building, you know, for those that may need to be out of their units for, you know, overnight or for a number of weeks, but try to avoid off-site relocation. We're not.
Which, by the way, you guys have kind of mastered
Yeah.
in over the last several years, but it's awesome if you can do it without, but in
Yeah.
the event that you need to, the way that you guys.
Yeah, I mean, especially with an elderly disabled population, it's not our goal to have to put them through that, and so we'll do everything we can to minimize it. I mean, sometimes people have needs such that to do construction in their unit, we do need to relocate them briefly, but we're going to try to minimize that.
Okay. So is it like a two-phaser or a three-phaser or a four-phaser? How do you envision that
It should
going?
be one long phase. We hope to start within about a year. This is kind of the first step towards, in more earnest, securing all of the resources we need to do this project. We are in active conversations with the city and state, and we're just trying to find where the sweet spot is in their funding queues for the project. But we hope to move forward as quickly as possible. The building's in bad shape.
And not, obviously, given just things that just come up, whether it's through phasing or through the relocation, not relocation, but just the construction and renovation process, is there sort of a defined start and a defined finish? You'd like to sort of start within a year and then ballpark as to how long you think the project
I'm
would
going to
take?
guess 18 months, Adam, as a construction
months, okay.
term. Yeah, about 18 months.
Great. And then from the outreach to the residents, I mean, there's been, I would assume, just like you've done in the other cases that were mentioned, there's been extensive conversation and outreach to the task force. And to the
Yes,
residents.
and as
So
I
no one-
mentioned,
no one-
they
no one over at
actually.
White's getting caught off guard. It's
Yeah,
all-
no, absolutely. There's been regular meetings there. The task force is actively engaged. The task force helped us select the developer. And as I mentioned, they actually came to the BHA to ask for this transition.
Yeah.
So they're very much on board.
Okay. And then maybe to Dean, on the legal side, this redevelopment would require certain exemptions from the state's contract and procurement award laws. I know that we've done that in the past. Anytime you sort of deviate a little bit, folks get a little apprehensive and concerned. So maybe just if we can talk just a little bit about what some of those exemptions are and how we're able to overcome them.
So,
You have it.
good morning, Councilor. So the way that this legislation works, under 149, there's a whole long bidding process. There's sub-bids, then the general bid. Under this legislation, we would still, and as we did do an RFP to select a developer under the state procurement laws. We then give a little bit more flexibility to the developer. We do still require that they have some kind of selection process, but they don't have to go through the entire process that the BHA itself would normally go through. And so that by streamlining that, it does result in cost savings, as Kate mentioned.
And would it also speed up the process a little bit?
It would also, yes, because it collapses some of that selection.
Okay.
So they go out for one bid with the general contractor rather than having to do sub-bids. And,
But as far as sort of the competitive bidding process, that still continues, so as far as advertisements and folks being willing to compete for the opportunity, so you guys have not selected a developer yet?
we have selected,
Oh, you have, good.
yes, we did go through that process under 30B.
All right, so
and
that part's done.
correct.
And now you're going down the road of sort of 149, and this kind of gives the.
Well, it would be,
developers like
yes, this
flexibility.
would grant an exemption to 149, so there wouldn't necessarily be the whole public bidding process.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, I know that there are some folks here that have indicated that they've signed up, but they didn't indicate their willingness to testify, but now is the time for public comment. If there's anyone here that wishes to offer public testimony, they may do so now, or forever hold your peace. Seeing and hearing no desire to do so, that will conclude the public testimony standpoint. And on behalf of my colleagues here on the council, and particularly Council Flynn from District 2, this is an exciting opportunity with respect to the Ava White development, and the seniors and disabled community over there will be thrilled when it's all done. I know that I'm sure there's some anxiety sort of associated with,
Yeah.
you know, sort of the what-ifs, but at the end of the day, you know, if you take a look at whether it's Mission Maine or even we just had another event over at the Old Colony that just, it's amazing in terms of what you guys have been able to do in terms of transforming the housing, sort of the older housing stock into, you know, just real great living space that with all the, you know, the freshness and all the amenities, you know, that we see in some of the other, you know, high-end units being developed in the city. So that's very encouraging. So from my perspective, I'll be issuing a favorable committee report and get this thing turned around.
Thank you so
quickly.
much.
And I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you for the work that you guys do on behalf of the residents through the BHA, and look forward to continue working with you. And hopefully, I wish we could do one of these one a week. You know, so if we get more, we can do them more. But and also to the Wind Company again that is referenced. You know, I see National Night Out is probably the best you know, opportunity for folks to kind of get a front row seat for the Wind Company and what they do, and how their residents that live in those developments, how they really appreciate the attention to detail that Wind puts into that housing, and those communities are great. So, and they're thriving communities, and we want to continue to see more of that here in the city. So with that, Docket 0210, petition for a special law act relative to certain affordable housing in the South End section of the City of Boston. The Committee on Government Operations is adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Counselor.